I guess I'll introduce myself. So I'm Angela Reed. I'm the branch manager for People's United Bank here in East Hartford. Hi. My official title is Assistant Vice President, Branch Manager. I've been with the bank over 16 years. Someone had mentioned that they recognized me, so I had asked if they recognized me from East Hartford or somewhere else, because I have an identical twin sister who looks alike, sound alike, dress alike, and we both are managers at the bank, and she's in the New Britain Stop and Shop office. So if you're out and about and you see someone that looks like me, her name is Danielle, and we've both been here over 16 years. So a little history real quick, because I know we're limited on time. I started at the bank. I grew up with my grandparents. I have an identical twin sister, and we have a younger brother. And we grew up in Middletown. And when I got my first job working at a grocery store, I needed a place to open an account. So I opened an account at People's because they're inside the grocery store and they're open 7 days a week. And then at 19, when I went to Central, I was looking to get a job and I didn't want to work in the grocery store anymore. So I had a friend that worked at the bank and he's like, hey, you should work at the bank. And I'm like, what am I going to do at the bank? I'm going to school to be a teacher. That has nothing to do with teaching. So I ended up applying and I've been there ever since. So I've been there since I was 19 years old, working part-time, and then worked my way up to full-time and branch manager. It's been a great company to work for. I think working at a bank at a young age allowed me to be able to experience like what is real life, right? So you guys are probably, in school. I don't know how many of you guys have jobs. Is anyone working after school? Yeah, what do you do after school?
Studying assistant.
What is it?
I work for East Hartford for education.
Okay, so what do you do there?
I just tutor kindergarten.
Okay, great. So it's hard when you get older juggling, work-life balance, right? So today what I wanted to talk about, one of the topics was financial literacy. And there's so many different things. Uh-oh, we're missing someone. Hi. That's all right. There's so many different things that fall under that category. And one of the things that's really affecting the banking world, but then also any profession that you're in, and even just real life, is really honesty in the workplace. So back in 2016 summer, I don't know if anyone heard about the huge fine that a bank had gotten. Did anyone hear about the huge fine? Do you remember what it was?
Not really, but I know what you're talking about.
So there was a bank, Wells Fargo, that was fined $183 million and had to let go of over 5,000 employees. I think it was like 5,800 employees. That would be kind of like wiping out all of People's United Bank. We have just over 5,000 employees, Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire. And so that was huge. And the biggest thing that they were fined for was opening accounts and products and services for customers that really didn't exist. And so what does that mean, right? And that could just be for the bank, opening these fraudulent accounts or not really having the customer understand what they were signing up for. But even if you're not working at a bank, it still applies to every day how you're holding yourself in your regular life and how you're holding yourself at your company. Because there's a lot of tough decisions, and sometimes with a lot of pressure, it may make you make bad decisions that could affect your job and everything else, right? So 5 of the things that I wanted to talk about today was just creating what is financial responsibility. Does anyone know or kind of idea? What do you think it is? What do you think?
I would say keeping track of purchases.
All right, keeping track of purchases. Yeah? Yeah, so if we're talking about your own self, right? What is financial responsibility? Probably understanding maybe how much you're bringing in and how much you're spending and keeping track of those purchases.
What are those? It's like a budget. If you write down everything you buy, by the end of the month, you
Right, so we call it a check register.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, a lot of people would always write out checks and then we'd have you writing those down. And now a lot of people do online banking and mobile banking. So sometimes it can get, it can become a little bit harder to kind of keep track of what you're spending when you're just swiping your card versus if you have like $100 in cash and then you're spending it that way and you're just, controlling how much you have in cash. So today for financial responsibility, it means refers to the process of managing money, so you're correct, and other similar assets in a way that is considered productive and is also in the best interest of the individual, family, business, or company. So when you're talking about it for yourself, you know, keeping track of all that stuff for you individually so that you're not overdrafting your checking account. Does anyone know how, if you overdraft your checking account, do you know what that means?
You're in debt,
Right, you're in debt. And who are you in debt to if you overdraft your checking account?
the bank or the government.
Right, so if we're talking about the bank, you owe the bank money. If you're probably in debt for some type of loan that you took out, maybe it was a school loan, and so you might owe the federal government. It can get very expensive if you overdraw your checking account. Does anyone have an idea of how much it could be? What do you think? 20? It's actually for our bank, it's $37 per item. So if you have $10 in your checking account and you go get gas in your car and it was for $20, you're gonna owe the bank how much? $10. The bank's gonna charge you a fee for doing that. So basically what you're doing is you're owing the bank the money, and the bank says, hey, this person, you know, you're a good customer of ours, we're gonna pay your gas bill that you just paid for your car, but then you're gonna owe us the money. So you're gonna owe us not only what you overdrew, which was the $10, but we're gonna charge you a fee, so now you owe us $37 plus the 10. $47 just for that $10. Very expensive. So our bank charges you per item, and we charge that fee to make it a deterrent from you so that you don't overdraw your checking account and you don't owe the bank money. Some banks will charge you like a per day, so it can get really expensive. So if you're gonna be, if you owe the bank for 5 days, they might charge you X amount of money for those 5 days for loaning that money to you, essentially. Let's talk about, so the first thing is setting a good example. Hold yourself to a high moral standard and help provide employees with solid examples of what you expect from yourself and what you expect for other people. And I'm sure that, you know, at the school they talk about this a lot, right? Setting a good example, just knowing kind of like what you're worth and what you can do for your employer and what you can do for yourself. The biggest thing is just being honest in your communication. If you know, as you guys start going out there and working at, you know, different companies, it's better just to say, you know, hey, listen, I can't make it to work because of this, instead of making up some, you know, silly excuse, because people can see right through that. Or if you make a mistake, it's okay to make mistakes. I mean, I've been with the company over 16 years and I still make a mistake, right? So it's about fixing that mistake right away versus trying to like sweep it under the rug, because then it just becomes a bigger problem. And then sometimes you may have made an honest mistake, and then if you're trying to kind of cover it up, it looks like you did something wrong, but you really didn't. You were just, you know, you just made an error. And generally most errors can be fixed if you fix it right away or know what the steps are to fix it right away. Promote open and honest communication. So, you know, if you, and like I said, if you know, if you can't make it to work one day and there's a problem, maybe you're sick, just say you're sick. If maybe you have something going on and, you know, who knows, maybe you needed to go do something, say you got a flat tire, you were heading into work and you got a flat tire, so you got the donut put on, right? But you really need to get that tire later on, but you're working until 9 o'clock at night. So you really have no time, the store closes at 7. Talk to your manager, talk to your supervisor, say, hey, this is what's going on. Instead of maybe you may just leave, maybe you go on lunch and your lunch break is a half hour and then you come back in an hour. And you were just like, oh, I'm sorry, I was late. So now your supervisor and manager thinks like, hey, what's going on with, Sue over here? She was only supposed to take a half-hour lunch and now she was gone for an hour. Instead, if you had probably talked to your supervisor and manager, they probably would have said, you know what, Sue, yeah, let me give you a longer lunch break and then you can go handle this, because I understand, like, you don't get out until 9 o'clock and they close at 7. So it's so open to have that, it's so important to have that open communication and honesty, because it prevents someone maybe assuming something about you when it could have just been worked out. So we see a lot of that. I train a lot of young people coming into the bank as their first job or maybe their second job. And I stress the importance of just being open in the communication, because there's a lot of things that we can help with.
How
Question?
old are like most of the people that start to work there? Like, how old do you have to be to work there?
So if you want to work at the bank, you have to be 18. Because we have to bond you as a bank. So we have to insure you as an employee since you're working with money. But other companies, if you're working starting at 16.
You need a college degree?
No, you don't. So that's a good question. So I don't have a college degree. I went to college, but I never completed it. And I'm sure some of you might say, oh, you should have completed school. And I think it's very important to complete school, by the way, I do. So maybe one day I'll go back. But you don't need a college degree to work at the bank. It's a good question. We do a lot of training for employees. There's a lot of certifications that you can get with the bank, and they pay for everything. So that's great to get into a company that rewards you for learning and growing. And a lot of companies do that, and they also pay you back for tuition reimbursement, so which is good too. So sometimes you only have to be there for a year. Question? Do I have an application? So everything now is done online, which I'm sure doesn't surprise any of you. So you have to go online to wpeoples.com. You go to the filters of the careers, but yeah. Did you have a question too?
The same question.
Same question, yeah.
Don't do it now.
Yeah, not now, John.
Well, you can't apply right now. I'm in the middle of a presentation. The third item I have on the list is stress the importance of addressing mistakes as soon as possible, which I had mentioned. So it's important to, nip this stuff in the bud as soon as it happens. And I'm sure even on your personal side, if you have a friend that's talking to you, you know when someone's telling you a lie, right? They go into maybe a whole bunch of details, or maybe they just don't give you enough details. You know right away when someone's trying to lie to you. And then how does that make you feel?
Bad.
Makes you feel kind of bad. It's the same thing, we're all people. So when you're working in your employer or whatever, or your teachers, it's the same feeling. So you don't want to have that feeling. It's better just to kind of say what it is, what the issue is, so we can move on. 4, seek a solution to display any negative or unethical behavior. Weed out the rotten apples and the employees that continuously seek and undermine the company culture, honesty, and integrity. So what does this mean for you? You know that whole slogan, it's like see something, say something type of thing?
Yeah.
It's so important to do that. And it's not to be like that tattletale or that person that's ratting someone out, because you don't have to rat someone out specifically to maybe say, hey, maybe we should look at this. Or if there's something going on, maybe you're working like the day shift and everything's always like perfect during the day, right? Because all like maybe the executives and everybody's working. But then at night, the night crew comes in and maybe things are a little bit less, they're a little bit more relaxed. But maybe something's really going on. Maybe you're working at the fast food place and someone's taking home the food. And we know they're not supposed to take home the food, but you don't want to be responsible for that, because what if something happens? So if you're the one working there and you know about it, maybe you don't say, hey, Joe is taking home all that extra food at night. Maybe you just say, you know what, I'm not really sure what's going on at night. Could someone show me? And then maybe have that person maybe work during that hour, and then they'll recognize it. So you don't actually have to pinpoint someone, because that could be very uncomfortable. But you can kind of bring light to maybe what's going on without actually singling someone out. And you don't want to be responsible for something that you didn't do, right? Because when you get older, not only are you taking care of yourself, but you might be taking care of somebody else. Maybe you're helping your parents. Maybe you end up having children and you have to provide for them. So you don't want to have to come in to maybe work one day and then all of a sudden it's like, hey Angela, this has been going on during your shift. How did you not know? Or did you know? And why didn't you do anything about it? And the last one is to reward employees who follow the company policy and demonstrate honesty and on a consistent basis. So it is rewarding to do the right things, right? It is rewarding to, just come into work and do a good job. Come into work, be honest with yourself, your coworkers, your customers. You can't help everyone. So there are times when, someone maybe comes to me and they can't do a loan. And I feel really bad that they can't do the loan. But there's certain requirements that we have to meet. And, it's better just to talk to the customer and say, this is what we needed from you, and we just can't do it at this time. So let's help you get to that point so we can do the loan for you. So a lot of things is heavy credit driven. So does everyone know what credit is?
Yeah.
All right, so what's credit?
Everybody else not I get paid.
Yeah? You want to help them?
Credit is you have a certain amount to pay off either a month or a year, and you have to make that based on how much you owe.
Okay. So yeah, credit could be like maybe you have credit somewhere, so they like maybe offered you $1,000 like credit line to pay for something. I think that's what you're meaning. But I mean, like, what does it mean when someone says I have good credit?
Oh,
What does that
Pay
mean?
things on time, like,
Right.
everything's taken care of, you're good and timely with the
Right,
certain
and that's
things.
all about financial responsibility. So your credit, there's a credit score, it's called a FICO score. And what does that mean? So as you guys starting out, that could mean your cell phone bill. So did you have a cell phone? Is it in your name? And do you pay the bill monthly on time? Do you have a car payment? So maybe you went and bought a new car, used car. Do you pay that bill on time every month? Or are you late? If you pay it on time every month, you're gonna start to build your credit and your credit history. And you're telling all the financial industry that, hey, when I get something, I pay it back. Sometimes you may be late on a bill. There's grace periods. So, and that's important to know. Like if you have a loan, sometimes say it's due on the 10th of every month, but maybe the company says you have a grace period until the 15th of every month. So as long as you pay it, you might be late a couple days, maybe you're waiting for your paycheck to come in, but I'm gonna give you a little grace period, I'm gonna give you until the 15th. As long as you pay it by the 15th, I'll still consider it an on-time payment. So it's important to understand what is on time and when things have to be due. So if you have a good credit score and you're trying to go get something, a loan, a credit card, the higher your credit score is, the financial industry will know if you're gonna pay it back. The higher your score is, that means, hey, this person pays their bills on time. So if we lend them money, we're gonna get our money back. If you don't have a good credit score, then this is gonna be, well, they're a little risky. They sometimes pay their bills, maybe they don't pay them all on time. We're gonna charge them a higher interest rate. Question?
So, like you said, a payment's due every 10, like they give it to the 15th.
Mhm.
You can't pay it like during that time period, like what if you pay on the 17th and the 18th?
What
Right,
was your credit?
so that's gonna affect your credit, and it's gonna affect it negatively. And then you might have to pay additional fees. So there might be a late payment fee. So it's gonna cost you more money. So and if paying any type of bills generally is going to cost you more money if you don't pay it at the time that they had allotted. And that can get very expensive. And it can become very overwhelming. So I'll tell you an example of me. So I go to college. So I've been used to doing everything on my own. So at 19, my grandparents were great, but at a young age, you kind of, when you have some type of diversity like this, living with maybe not your parents for some whatever reason, I started working at like 13. So I did like all babysitting jobs, and at 16 I got my first job. When I went to school, I was going to Central, I was living on campus, and then they have all these people there trying to offer you credit cards, right? And you're like, oh wow, okay. People are giving me a credit card, and then I get their credit card and it's like, oh man, you gave me $3,000. I'm like, oh, what am I gonna go do? What do you think I did?
Shopping?
Of course. $3,000, I'm an 18-year-old kid. Who doesn't want to go shopping, right? So I go to Old Navy, I'm buying clothes. Sure, I buy some books for school, but you know, I need clothes for school. And then I'm like out with my friends, and then I need to buy something to eat. And so you do that like every day, and the bill ranks up. And then I'm like, oh, I owe like $3,000. Like, I just maxed out this credit card. What am I supposed to do with this? I don't have $3,000 to pay back. So you get into this situation, and I get into this situation, and I have to owe all this money back. I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I start working at the bank. Then I'm like, okay, well, I need a better job. So I work at the grocery store. I'm like, I need a better job because I need to pay for this bill. And it took me a long time to pay off the bill. And I'm like, oh man, if you ever get a credit card and you have the $3,000, they'll factor out a calculation of the interest rate. So say you get a credit card and they're like, oh, I'll charge you 20% on the $3,000. That's a lot, right? 20% sounds a lot. If you take $100, what's 20% of 100? $20. So for every $100 you're spending, it becomes a lot of money. So I'm like, geez, I need to pay this off soon, right? So I'm like, you know, I'm going to school full time, I'm working part time, I have a car loan at that point. So I'm like, oh man, I really got to get this payment. So I start working at the bank. I make a little bit more money. And then you have to start sacrificing because now I have to work to pay for the bills. So I'm paying my car payment, I'm paying the credit card, and I finally get it paid off. What'd I do? No shopping. I had no credit card. So I didn't have any credit cards for years. And I just started getting a credit card probably a couple years ago. I'm 35 years old. But I knew for myself that whatever I wanted to spend money on, I needed to have cash. Because I never wanted to get into that situation where I felt like so, kind of pressed that I needed to pay all these bills.
Some banks offer like student credit cards.
Mhm.
Do you guys do that?
We work with a company called Elon Financial, and we do credit cards. We don't do the student credit card anymore.
Okay.
There's other credit cards that are nice that are just like rewards cards, so those ones are better. So if you're 18 and older, you can get a credit card. But that's all about financial responsibility, understanding what that really means. If you get a credit card, you should really be using it appropriately. So don't use it when you're going out to dinner and just going out with your friends. If you know you have $20 or $10, then just use your cash. Because why would you want to put it on a credit card that's going to charge you interest? So now that $10 meal is going to maybe cost you $15. So it's like you're just spending more money. Sure, it's nice to put it on the credit card, but then you have to really make sure you're paying it off at the end of the month so you don't get the interest rate. So a lot of credit cards, if you pay it within that month on your credit card and then you pay it off in full, they won't charge you the interest. So you end up, being able to kind of budget yourself, but that comes with time to be able to do that. What I recommend for budgeting yourself is if you get a calendar for the month, right? And then each day of the week, write down all the bills and when they're due. So if you have your cell phone bill, maybe you have a car payment, maybe you have a student loan, and write those during the week. And then write down how much you get paid for each week. And then you can see on the calendar when the bill has to be paid and when you get paid. So it helps you to kind of organize by week what you're spending and what you have extra to spend, maybe to go out with friends and family. I think we're at time.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, good.
you had a wealth of information.
The whole
All right, good.
So much.
Huh?
The whole